Victor Anderson touched the dying alien woman's neural interface for the first time, and in that instant, he felt something he had sworn never to feel again, the desperate pull of a mind reaching for connection across an impossible void. And for 7 years, she had been screaming into silence. His name was Victor Anderson, 58 years old, chief maintenance technician on Arxheim, a frozen mining colony where people came to disappear. He fixed machines now, not people. Never people again. Not since Oslo, not since Anna. But what happened in that underground workshop over the next 72 hours would force him to break every vow he had made to himself. It would cost him memories he could never recover, abilities he would lose forever, and demand a sacrifice that terrified him more than death itself. If you have ever felt the weight of a choice between protecting yourself and saving another, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story will show you what it truly means to risk everything for connection. I'll create the complete 60-minute HFY story for you, following the model structure. This will be approximately 75 characters across 5 chapters with introduction and conclusion. He was testing the banished alien woman's Dormant interface until it requested him as primary user introduction. Victor Anderson touched the dying alien woman's neural interface for the first time, and in that instant, he felt something he had sworn never to feel again, the desperate pull of a mind reaching for connection across an impossible void. And for 7 years, she had been screaming into silence. His name was Victor Anderson, 58 years old, chief maintenance technician on Arxheim, a frozen mining colony where people came to disappear. He fixed machines now, not people, never people again, not since Oslo, not since Anna. But what happened in that underground workshop over the next 72 hours would force him to break every vow he had made to himself. It would cost him memories he could never recover, abilities he would lose forever, and demand a sacrifice that terrified him more than death itself. If you have ever felt the weight of a choice between protecting yourself and saving another, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story will show you what it truly means to risk everything for connection. Chapter 1. The Call. The comm unit crackled at 0300 station time, pulling Victor from restless sleep in his compact HAB unit beneath New Stockholm settlement. The voice on the other end belonged to Chen, one of the night shift supervisors at Mining Sector 7. Victor, we got a situation. Alien worker, Nexari species. Some kind of neural interface malfunction. She is convulsing, circuits under her skin going haywire. Medical does not know what to do with her, and the other techs. Chen paused. They said Nexari tech is beyond them. You are the only one who might figure it out. Victor sat up, his large frame creaking the reinforced bed. Through the small window, Arxheim's perpetual twilight cast blue shadows across crystalline mountains. The temperature outside read -43 Celsius. Send me the location, he said, already pulling on his thermal overalls. The fabric was stained with years of grease and solvent, badges of honorable work that asked nothing of his heart. 20 minutes later, Victor stood in a cramped habitat module that smelled of recycled air and something else, something organic and unfamiliar. The Nexari woman lay on a narrow cot, her body rigid with seizure. She was tall, humanoid, with skin the color of aged ivory. Beneath that skin, circuits glowed in chaotic patterns, red instead of their natural silver, pulsing like a failing heartbeat. Her eyes were open but unseeing, amber irises filled with scrolling code that made no sense. Copper-colored hair spread across the pillow, metallic strands catching the harsh overhead light. How long has she been like this? Victor asked, setting down his diagnostic kit. Chen, a compact man with worried eyes, checked his datapad. About 40 minutes. It started as tremors, then escalated. Her name is Aylin. Been working the deep mines for 3 years. Keeps to herself mostly. Victor approached cautiously, professional instincts overriding the part of him that wanted to leave. He had seen enough suffering. He had caused enough. But his hands, scarred and massive, were already reaching for his scanner. The readings made no sense at first. Nixari neural architecture was legendary, integrated biotechnology that made human cybernetics look primitive. But this was wrong. The interface was attempting to reactivate against some kind of quantum lock, creating a cascade failure that would cook her nervous system from the inside. "Get everyone out," Victor said quietly. "What? Out. Now. If this interface fully destabilizes, the electromagnetic pulse could fry every piece of electronics in 50 meters. Chen did not argue. Within 2 minutes, Victor was alone with the dying alien woman. He worked in silence, hands moving with practiced precision despite 8 years away from medical work. The equipment he had was inadequate, designed for human systems. But improvisation had always been his gift. He had understood machines intuitively since childhood, and neural interfaces were just machines that spoke to biology. 6 hours passed. Victor barely noticed. He rerouted power flows, isolated failing circuits, created bypass systems using components that were never meant to interface with Nixari technology. Sweat soaked through his thermal layers despite the cold. At 0923 station time, the chaotic red pulses beneath Aylin's skin began to slow. The seizures stopped. Her breathing, which had been rapid and shallow, deepened. Victor sat back, his lower back screaming in protest. The interface was not fixed, not really. It was suspended in a critical limbo between activation and shutdown. But she was stable. She would live. For now. He was cleaning his tools when her eyes focused. The code stopped scrolling, replaced by genuine awareness. She turned her head slowly, looking at him. "You?" Her voice was rough, unused. "You should not have interfered." Victor did not look up from organizing his kit. "You are welcome. I mean it. Letting me die would have been mercy." Now he met her gaze. Those amber eyes held depths of pain he recognized too well. "I do not let people die in my workshop. Too much mess to clean up." A ghost of something that might have been amusement crossed her delicate alien features. Practical. Always. He stood, his knees popping. "Your interface is compromised. The quantum lock someone put on it is degrading. That is what caused the cascade. You are going to need monitoring for the next few days, maybe longer." "Why?" "Because if it fails completely, you will die. Neurological death. You will still be breathing, but everything that makes you, you will be gone." Aylin closed her eyes. Perhaps that would be preferable. Victor had heard those words before. Different voice, different language, but the same exhausted surrender. Anna had said something similar in her last months, before he had made the choice that destroyed them both. "That is not my decision to make," he said, picking up his kit. "But I will be back in 8 hours to check your readings. Try not to die before then. Paperwork would be terrible." He left before she could respond, before the memories could pull him under. The next 3 days fell into a rhythm Victor had not experienced in years. He would arrive at Aylin's habitat module twice daily, run diagnostics on her interface, make minute adjustments to keep the system stable. She would watch him work with those amber eyes, asking occasional questions that were far too perceptive. "You were not always a maintenance technician," she observed on the second day. "Your hands move like a surgeon." Victor did not pause his work. "Used to be. Different life." "What changed?" "I made a mistake that could not be unmade." She was quiet for a long moment. "I understand that." It was on the 3rd day that Victor made his first true mistake since arriving on Arxheim. He had to physically access a node in her interface, a point where the biotechnology breached the surface of her skin at the base of her neck. He touched it with his bare hand, just for a moment, to feel the temperature and assess inflammation. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. He felt it. Not physical sensation, but emotion, pure and undiluted. Loneliness so vast it had weight, pressing down like the entire ocean concentrated into a single moment. Emptiness, where something immense used to exist. The sensation of reaching for connection and finding only void, forever and ever and ever. Victor jerked his hand back, gasping. His heart hammered against his ribs. Cold sweat broke across his forehead. Aylin was staring at him, equally shocked. You felt that? What the hell was that? His voice came out shaky, unprofessional. The interface, it has a fail-safe protocol. If a Nexari is in mortal danger, the system attempts to find a substitute user, anyone who might provide temporary neural support. Her hand moved to her neck, touching where he had touched. But it has never worked. Nexari are the only species with compatible neural architecture, or so we thought. Victor forced himself to breathe normally. Do not do that again. I did not do anything. Your nervous system is somehow compatible enough for initial contact. The interface recognized you as a potential host. Well, it can unrecognize me. I am here to fix hardware, not... He did not finish the sentence. Not connect, not feel, not risk. But something had changed. He had felt her loneliness, and it was a mirror of his own. That evening, Victor returned to his hab unit, but could not sleep. He sat at his small desk, turning his wedding ring over in his fingers. He wore it on a cord around his neck now. His hands swelled too much in the cold to wear it properly. Anna had been gone for 8 years, 2 months, and 17 days. He had counted every one. The next morning, when he arrived at Aylin's module, he found her sitting up, working on a data pad. She looked weaker than she should, the circuits under her skin dim. Your readings are declining, Victor said without preamble. You are not sleeping. Sleep is difficult when you spend 7 years learning to fear silence. Victor set up his equipment, but for once he hesitated before beginning diagnostics. Tell me about the Nexus Collective. Aylin looked up, surprise clear on her face. Why? Because I need to understand what I am dealing with. Your interface is integrated with your entire nervous system in ways I have never seen. I need context. It was only partially true. The rest, the part he would not admit, was that he needed to understand the loneliness he had felt. He needed to know he was not alone in carrying that weight. Aylin was quiet for so long he thought she would refuse. Then she began to speak. Imagine never being alone. Not in the way you understand it. Every Nexari is connected to the collective from birth. We feel the presence of billions of minds in the background of our consciousness. Not invasive, not controlling, just there, like breathing. You do not think about it, but if it stopped, you would die. Her hands moved as she spoke, elegant fingers tracing patterns in the air. We share knowledge instantly, experience, emotion. If someone on our homeworld discovers something beautiful, every Nexari feels the echo of that joy. If someone dies, we all carry a fragment of their loss. It creates harmony, eliminates conflict. Why fight when you understand the other's perspective completely? Sounds perfect, Victor said, running his scanner along her spine. It was, until I realized it was killing us. Now he stopped, meeting her eyes. 7 years ago, I was a neural architect. I designed expansions to the collective, optimized connections. I was good at it, proud. Her voice carried old pain. But I noticed something. Creativity was declining. Divergent thinking. Every generation was slightly more uniform than the last. The collective was not just connecting us, it was slowly homogenizing us. You told them? I told the Directive Council. They called it heresy. Connection is sacred to Nexari. Questioning it is questioning our entire evolution. Victor understood that. He had questioned the medical establishment's protocols, had violated them to save Anna. They had destroyed him for it. I created a patch, Aylin continued. Unauthorized. It would preserve individual neural patterns while maintaining connection. But I was caught before I could implement it widely. And they exiled you. Worse, they disconnected me. Permanently. The interface that linked me to billions of minds was quantum-locked and deactivated. Her hand moved to her neck again, a habitual gesture. Imagine having a sense you have had your entire life suddenly cut away. Sight, hearing, touch, all gone simultaneously. That is what disconnection feels like. Every moment of every day for 7 years. The silence that followed was heavy with shared understanding. I lost someone too, Victor heard himself say. My wife, Anna. She had a degenerative neural disease. I tried an experimental procedure using an interface I designed. It worked for 6 months. She came back to us, to me. Then it failed catastrophically. The pain she felt at the end. He touched the ring at his neck. They stripped my medical license, criminal charges that were eventually dropped. But I carry it anyway. The knowledge that my hands, which should heal, caused agony instead. You tried to save her. I killed her trying. No. Aylin's voice was firm. You gave her 6 months she would not have had. That is not nothing. Victor wanted to believe that. He had wanted to believe it for 8 years, but guilt was easier than forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness. Your readings are still declining, he said, returning to safer ground. This quantum lock is not just preventing reconnection. It is degrading your entire interface. At current rates, you have maybe 72 hours before total neurological failure. Aylin nodded, unsurprised. I know. I can feel it. Like drowning in slow motion. There has to be a solution. Some way to stabilize without reconnecting to the collective. There is not. The interface requires a network connection to distribute processing load. Without it, everything concentrates in my biological neural tissue. It will burn out. Victor gathered his equipment, mind already working through possibilities. There is always a solution. I just need to find it. Why do you care? Aylin asked softly. You do not know me. You came to fix a problem. The problem is unfixable. You should walk away. He paused at the door, not looking back. I walked away once, from medicine, from people, from anything that could hurt me again. But that did not stop the hurt. It just made me alone with it. So you understand, she whispered. Yeah, I understand. 48 hours later, Victor had not slept more than a few scattered minutes. His workshop, a larger space he had claimed in the industrial sector, was covered in schematics, both human and Nexari. He had called in every favor, accessed every database he could reach, even contacted a few old colleagues through encrypted channels. The answer was always the same: impossible. The Nexari interface required connection to a neural network of massive scale. Without it, the system would collapse. Unless. The idea came at 0400 station time, in that strange state between exhaustion and clarity. A human could not provide the network capacity of billions of Nexari minds, but a human neural system, properly modified, might provide enough temporary support to redistribute the load. Just long enough to remove the quantum lock without killing her. It would require installing neural implants in his own brain. Implants he had designed years ago but never tested on humans. The risks were catastrophic: brain damage, permanent cognitive impairment, or success, which carried its own dangers. If it worked, he would feel everything she felt. She would feel everything he felt. True neural connection, the kind he had studied theoretically, but never dared attempt with Anna. And if one of them died while connected, the other would experience that death intimately, completely. It was exactly what terrified him most. Victor was still staring at the schematics when Chen found him. She is getting worse, the supervisor said without preamble. Whatever you are going to do it soon. I need to speak with her. Aylin's condition had visibly deteriorated. The circuits under her skin barely glowed now, her breathing shallow, but her eyes were clear when Victor entered. I have an idea, he said, sitting heavily in the chair beside her cot. It is dangerous, possibly fatal. definitely permanent. Tell me. He explained the concept of temporary neural bridging, the implants, the risks. He did not sugarcoat anything. She deserved truth. When he finished, Aylin was quiet for a long time. You would feel everything I feel, every moment of the procedure and after. Yes. The loneliness. The grief. 7 years of isolation compressed into your consciousness. Yes. And I would feel your pain, your guilt over Anna, every memory, every regret. Yes. Why would you do this? You swore never to work on living beings again. You chose exile to escape this kind of risk. Victor looked at his hands, those scarred, massive hands that had tried to heal and caused harm instead. Because I am tired of being defined by the worst moment of my life. Because you deserve a choice, which Anna did not have. Because he met her eyes. Because in 3 days, you have shown me more courage than I have had in 8 years. You were punished for defending individuality. I was punished for loving too much. Maybe we are both owed a second chance. Tears formed in Aylin's eyes, but they were not like human tears. Liquid that glowed faintly silver, conducting fluid from her biotechnology. The connection would be permanent, Victor. Once established, breaking it could kill us both. You would never be free of me. Or you of me. I am broken. Damaged. You would be tying yourself to someone who has been screaming into silence for 7 years. So have I. Victor stood. Decision made. I have spent 8 years maintaining distance, fixing machines instead of people, choosing loneliness over risk. It has not made me happy. It has not made me whole. It has just made me a very lonely technician on a frozen planet. You could die. We are all dying. Question is whether we do it alone or together. Aylin closed her eyes, more silver tears tracking down her cheeks. I choose together. I choose to live, even if it costs everything. Then we start in 6 hours. I need to prepare the implants and sedate you for the initial interface. Victor, he turned at the door. Thank you for seeing me as worth saving. Thank you for reminding me I might be too. The next 6 hours were a blur of preparation. Victor fabricated the neural implants using medical equipment he had brought from Earth years ago, swearing he would never need them again. The devices were crude by Nexari standards, but elegant by human ones, designed to create temporary neural bridges for trauma patients. He had never tested them for permanent connection. He had never dared. Chen helped set up the procedure room, a clean space in the medical wing that no one used much. The colony doctor, an older woman named Dr. Okafor, provided oversight and made him sign liability waivers. You know this is insane, she said bluntly. Yes. And you are doing it anyway. Yes. She studied him for a long moment. I heard what happened in Oslo, with your wife. I am sorry. This is not about her. Is it not? Victor, I have been a doctor for 40 years. I know what redemption looks like when I see someone reaching for it. If this works, it will validate my designs, prove the theory. If this works, you will have proven that love is worth risking everything. That is a different kind of validation. Dr. Okafor placed a hand on his shoulder. For what it is worth, I think you are brave. Stupid, but brave. When they brought Aylin in, sedated and prepped, Victor felt the fear fully for the first time. His hands shook as he placed the neural interface nodes on his own skull, securing them with medical adhesive. The implants would burrow through skull and integrate with his cortex during activation. Irreversible. Last chance to back out, Dr. Okafor said softly. Victor looked at Aylin's unconscious face, peaceful in sleep. He thought about Anna, about the choice she had made to try his procedure. She had known the risks. She had chosen hope over certainty. Start the integration sequence, he said. The first touch of connection was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Pain came first, white-hot lances through his skull as the implants burrowed deep. Victor gasped, gripping the armrests of his chair. Dr. Okafor moved to intervene, but he shook his head. This was expected. This was necessary. Then the pain transformed into something else. Presence. He felt her, Aylin, not as a separate consciousness, but as an extension of his own awareness. Her thoughts were his thoughts. Her memories were his memories. The boundaries between them dissolved like ice in warm water. And he understood, finally, what she had lost. The Nexus Collective had not been a network. It had been a symphony, billions of voices harmonizing in infinite complexity. Each Nexari was a note, contributing to a composition beyond comprehension. Aylin had been a note torn from the symphony and thrown into silence. For 7 years, she had existed in that silence. And the loneliness was not like human loneliness, which was the absence of others. It was the absence of self, because Nexari's sense of self included the collective. Being disconnected was being erased. Victor felt himself crying, but he could not tell if the tears were his or hers or both. Then her consciousness stirred, rising through sedation. She felt him in return. Anna. She saw Anna through his eyes, saw their life together in Oslo, 30 years of quiet happiness. Saw the disease taking her piece by piece, memory by memory. Saw Victor's desperation, his frantic research, his willingness to violate every protocol to save her. Saw the procedure working, 6 months of Anna returning. Their last winter together when they knew every moment was borrowed but chose to be grateful anyway. Saw the failure, the cascade, Anna's pain, her death. Saw Victor's destruction afterward, the investigation, the judgment, his choice to exile himself, to never touch another living being in a medical capacity, to hide on a frozen planet at the edge of human space. She felt his guilt, 8 years of corroding self-hatred. But she also saw what he could not. She saw Anna's face in those last conscious moments, before the pain. Saw her mouth words Victor had been too shattered to remember. "Try again, Vic, with someone else. Do not die with me." Aylin pushed that memory forward, forced him to see it clearly. "She gave you permission." Aylin's voice echoed in his mind. Not words, but pure meaning. She wanted you to live, to try again, to risk again. "I killed her. You loved her enough to try the impossible. That is not murder. That is devotion." The connection deepened. They were not two anymore, but a singular awareness split across 2 bodies. Victor could feel his hands working even though he sat immobilized by the integration. No, not his hands. Their hands. Aylin's consciousness was guiding his motor functions, using his physical form to access her own interface while he experienced it from within. It was terrifying. It was intimate beyond anything physical. It was right. Together, they mapped the quantum lock that had imprisoned her for 7 years. It was elegant work, a cruel precision designed to prevent tampering. But with their combined perspective, human intuition and Nexari technical knowledge merged, they saw the weakness. Removing the lock would require replacing its function. The lock had prevented reconnection to the collective, but it had also provided a kind of stability, a cap on the interface's activity. Remove it, and the interface would try to reach for the collective, fail, and cascade into total failure within seconds, unless they provided an alternative connection, unless Victor became her collective. The realization came to both of them simultaneously. It would be permanent, Aylin thought. I know. You would lose functionality. The implants are not designed for perpetual neural bridging. Your brain will sacrifice peripheral systems to maintain the core connection, memory consolidation, fine motor control, abstract reasoning, all potential casualties. I know. You would become less than you are to save me. No, I would become something different, Something connected. I have been less than I was for 8 years, Aelin. This is not diminishment. This is transformation. Victor, I am asking you to give up pieces of yourself. And I am choosing to. Anna taught me that love means risking everything. You are teaching me that trying again is not betrayal. Let me finish the lesson. Their merged consciousness reached the point of no return. The quantum lock was accessible now, ready to be removed. But Victor had to make a final choice. Install the permanent bridging protocols in his own neural architecture, or abandon the procedure. He felt Aelin's resistance, her desperate desire to refuse this sacrifice. But he also felt her loneliness, her bone-deep exhaustion from 7 years of silence. Please, he thought, let me do this. Let me be enough. And she stopped fighting. Victor activated the permanent bridge protocols. The implants burrowed deeper, spreading root-like structures through his cortex. He felt things breaking, neural pathways being sacrificed to create new ones. Memories blurred, old technical knowledge that had seemed crucial faded. His left hand, always his steady hand, went partially numb. But a connection formed, solid, unbreakable, real. Aelin's interface found it and latched on. Desperate as a drowning person reaching for solid ground, the load redistributed. The cascade halted. The quantum lock, now unnecessary, dissolved. For the first time in 7 years, Aelin was connected to a neural network. It was not the collective. It was just one other consciousness. But it was there, present, real. They opened their eyes, both bodies moving in synchronization. I feel you, Aelin whispered aloud. I am not alone. Neither am I, Victor said. Dr. Okafor was crying, something Victor had never seen. You did it. You insane, beautiful fools. You did it. But the cost was immediately apparent. When Victor tried to stand, his left leg did not respond properly. Motor control compromised. He gripped the chair, adapting. Memories, he said aloud. I am losing memories. Aelin felt it too through their connection. Peripheral memories fragmenting, making space for the permanent bridge. Names of childhood friends. Details of old projects. The address of his first apartment. I am so sorry, Aelin thought. Do not be. I remember what matters. I remember Anna. I remember why I am here. The rest is just data. They stayed connected as Dr. Okafor ran tests. The neural bridge was stable, unlike anything in medical literature. 2 beings, different species, sharing consciousness across a permanent link. You will need to learn to manage this, Dr. Okafor said. It is not telepathy exactly, more like constantly feeling another person's presence. You will know each other's emotional states, general thoughts. Privacy will be difficult. Worth it, they said together, then smiled at the synchronization. The first week was difficult. Victor and Aelin had to relearn how to function as individuals while constantly aware of each other. Simple tasks became complicated when you felt another's reactions to your choices. Victor would reach for a tool with his right hand, his left still unreliable, and feel Aelin's frustration at his impairment, which he had accepted because of her. She would wake from nightmares of disconnection and feel his steady presence grounding her, which made her weep with gratitude and guilt simultaneously. But they learned. They adapted. Victor discovered that he could borrow her technical knowledge through the link. Nexari neural architecture, which had seemed impossibly complex, became intuitive. Aelin found that his improvisational thinking, his ability to see solutions outside established protocols, was available to her. They were greater together than separate. 2 months after the procedure, Victor returned to working with living beings. Not humans. Not yet. But the alien workers in the colony who had cybernetic or neural augmentations. Aelin worked beside him, her physical strength recovered, her circuits glowing a new color. Not the silver of Nexari connection, but a silver-gold hybrid, like dawnlight on metal. They did not need to speak much while working. Communication happened through the link, efficient and clear. Left side junction needs reinforcement, Aelin would think. Agreed. Hand me the micro-welder. Their first major case was a cranic miner, an insectoid species, who had damaged neural implants from a tunnel collapse. The technology was nothing like human or Nexari, but together they deciphered it. Victor's intuitive understanding of neural systems, combined with Aelin's theoretical knowledge, created solutions neither could have found alone. The cranic survived and recovered fully. Word spread. The lonely technician who had exiled himself had become part of something greater. The banished Nexari, who had spent 7 years in silence, had found a voice again. One evening, sitting in their shared workspace, the facility they had claimed in the industrial sector and converted into a proper medical lab, Aelin asked the question that had been hovering at the edge of their connection. Do you regret it? The losses? Victor looked at his left hand, flexing fingers that no longer moved with their old precision. He thought about the memories he could not quite reach anymore. Faces from his past blurred beyond recognition. No, he said aloud, wanting her to hear the words as well as feel the truth. I lost pieces, but I gained wholeness. That is a trade I would make every time. I spent 7 years believing I was punished justly, Aelin said softly. That individuality was the crime, and my exile was what I deserved for choosing it. And now? Now I understand that connection does not require conformity. The collective was beautiful, but it was also a cage. This, us, is different. You know my thoughts, but you do not control them. I feel your presence, but you give me space to be myself. That is what real connection is, Victor said. Choice, not obligation. Through their link, they shared a moment of profound understanding. Both had been punished for defying systems they loved. Both had been broken by those punishments. Both had found each other in exile and built something neither system could have imagined. 3 months after the procedure, a message arrived via encrypted quantum channel. It took Victor 3 days to crack the encryption, even with Aelin's help. When they finally opened it, they found a simple text message from deep Nexari space. Architect Sirith, your final design has been reconsidered. Distributed implementation beginning. Individual preservation protocols active. The collective thanks you. We are learning to be many while remaining one. Return is not possible. Forgiveness is. Live well in your new connection. You showed us the path we were too afraid to see. Aelin read it 3 times through eyes blurred with silver tears. They implemented my patch, the one that got me exiled. They changed. You changed them, even from here, even disconnected. Victor felt her overwhelming emotion through their link and added his own. Pride, joy, vindication. I will never go back, Aelin said, even if I could. This is home now. Arxheim. You, us, this. She gestured at their lab, at the work they were building together. 6 months after the procedure, Victor stood in front of a mirror in their shared habitat. They had moved in together out of practicality. Being physically close made the neural bridge more comfortable, reduced the cognitive load of maintaining connection across distances. That was what they told themselves. The truth, which they both knew through the link, was simpler. They wanted to be together. His hair was whiter now, face more lined. The neural bridge required constant low-level processing that aged him slightly faster than normal. His left hand had regained some function through therapy, but he would never have his old dexterity. But his eyes, which had been empty for 8 years, were alive again. Aelin appeared beside him in the mirror, her hand resting on his shoulder. The circuit patterns under her skin glowed that unique silver gold, pulsing gently in rhythm with his heartbeat. They were synchronized, 2 hearts beating as one system. Are you happy? She asked aloud. Victor thought about Anna, about the life they had shared and lost. He touched the ring at his neck, the one he still wore. Not from guilt anymore, but from gratitude. She had taught him about love that risks everything. She had given him permission to try again. "Yes," he said. "Anna would approve, I think, of this, of you, of me choosing to live instead of just existing. I wish I could have known her. In a way, you do. She is in my memories, which means she is in our memories now." Aelin smiled, that beautiful alien expression he had learned to read as easily as breathing. "Then we carry her together." 1 year after the procedure, Victor was training other technicians in neural interface repair. Aelin taught theory while he demonstrated practical application. They had become Arxheim's premier neural specialists, treating patients from a dozen species. The work was challenging, sometimes heartbreaking when they could not save someone. But they faced it together, and that made all the difference. One evening, working late on a particularly complex case, Victor felt a surge of pure contentment through the link. He looked up to find Aelin watching him. "What?" "I was just thinking. The Nexari believe connection is everything, that being alone is a form of death. They were not wrong exactly, just incomplete." "How so?" "Connection means nothing if it is not chosen. The collective was profound, but it was also mandatory. Everyone connected because everyone had always been connected. There was no choice, no sacrifice, no risk." She moved closer, taking his hand, the one with reduced function, the price he had paid for her survival. "This connection required everything from both of us. You gave up abilities you will never regain. I gave up any chance of returning to my people. We chose this, knowing the cost. That makes it real in a way the collective never was." Victor understood. He had loved Anna with the easy love of youth, before they knew what loss meant. He loved Aelin with the harder love of experience, having counted the cost and paid it willingly. "We should write this up," he said. "Document the procedure. If it worked for us, it could work for others." Cross-species neural bridging? The medical establishment would call it impossible. They called a lot of things impossible until someone proved otherwise. He smiled. "Besides, you were punished for defending individuality within connection. I was punished for trying to save someone against the rules. Seems appropriate that together we create something that breaks all the rules for a good reason." They worked on the documentation for months, careful and thorough. The paper was published in the Arxheim Medical Journal, a small circulation publication that mostly covered mining accidents and exotic alien biology. 3 weeks later, a message arrived from Earth Medical Command. Then another from the Nexari Collective. Then more, from species and institutions across known space. Cross-species neural bridging, achieved through sacrifice and choice, was not just a medical advancement. It was a philosophical statement. Connection could exist without conformity. Love could transcend biology. Victor and Aelin became minor celebrities in xenological medical circles, though they both found it uncomfortable. They were not trying to change the galaxy. They were just two broken people who had found each other and chosen wholeness over safety. 2 years after the procedure, on a quiet evening in their lab, Victor received a message that made his hands shake. Chen brought it in personally, looking nervous. "It is from Oslo, from the Earth Medical Review Board." Victor stared at the datapad for a long moment. Aelin felt his fear through the link and moved to stand beside him. "Open it," she thought. "Whatever it says, we face it together." He opened it. The message was brief. After reviewing his published work on cross-species neural bridging and considering the ethical framework he had developed with architect Sirith, the review board was officially reinstating his medical license. All charges were expunged from his record. He was formally recognized as a pioneer in neural integration therapy. They apologized for what had been done to him 8 years ago. They acknowledged that sometimes breaking rules is the only way to discover new truths. Victor read it twice, 3 times. Then he set the datapad down and sat heavily. "I do not want it," he said aloud. Aelin was surprised. He felt it through the link. Why not? This is your vindication, your redemption. No. This is bureaucracy trying to claim what we built in spite of them. I do not need their permission anymore. I do not need their license or their approval. He looked at her, this alien woman who had become more essential than breathing. I have everything I need right here. But the recognition is meaningless compared to the work. We help people every day, Aylin. People the establishment does not care about. Aliens on a frontier mining colony, exiles and refugees, the forgotten. If I go back to Earth, become respectable again, I lose that. I lose us. She felt the truth in his words, the bone-deep certainty. You are sure? Completely. They exiled me when I needed them most. You were there when I was ready to try again. That is the only judgment that matters. Aylin smiled, silver tears tracking down her face. Then we stay. We keep working. We keep proving that connection chosen is stronger than connection imposed. Together, Victor said. Always. 5 years after the procedure, Victor was 63 years old. The neural bridge had aged him, taken its toll. His memory had permanent gaps. His left side remained weak. He had lost perhaps 10 years of life expectancy. But every morning, he woke up aware of Aylin's presence in his mind, warm and real and chosen. Every day, they worked together, healed together, lived together. They had trained a dozen other technicians in their methods, saved hundreds of lives, published papers that were changing how the galaxy thought about neural technology and connection. The lost Nexari, Kylvin, the one who had gone mad from disconnection, was buried on a hillside overlooking New Stockholm settlement. Victor and Aylin visited sometimes, leaving small tokens. He was a reminder of what Aylin might have become, had Victor not chosen to risk everything. One evening, standing at that grave, Aylin spoke what they both felt. He did not have someone willing to sacrifice for him. No one saw him as worth saving. Everyone is worth saving, Victor said. If you can. If they want to be saved. That is what I failed to understand with Anna. I wanted to save her so desperately, I did not ask what she wanted. You taught me that. You gave me the gift of your choice, and I gave you mine. Choice is love, Aylin said. Everything else is just need. 7 years after the procedure, almost to the day, Victor and Aylin sat in their lab late at night. A storm raged outside, Arxheim's brutal wind screaming across crystalline mountains. Inside they had warmth and light, and each other. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I had not responded to Chen's call that night? Victor asked. Every day, I would be dead, forgotten. Another exiled Nexari who could not survive disconnection. And I would still be fixing machines, alone, half alive. We saved each other, Aylin said. Yes, but you first. You reminded me that I was still human, still capable of caring, still worth something beyond my worst failure. Through the link, she felt his gratitude, his love, his absolute certainty that this life, diminished in some ways but enriched in others, was the one he would choose again and again. If I could go back, she thought, knowing he would understand. If I could return to the collective before my exile, knowing everything that would happen, all the pain and loneliness and suffering, I would still make the same choice. I would still create that patch, still be exiled, because it led me here, to you, to this. Even knowing what it cost? Especially knowing what it cost, because it made the choice real. Outside, the storm continued. Inside, two beings from different worlds, connected through sacrifice and choice, worked on their next case. A Therian prospector with damaged neural implants. Difficult, but not impossible. Nothing was impossible when you were not alone. The galaxy is vast and often cruel. We are punished for loving too much, for questioning too loudly, for daring to believe the rules are wrong. Victor Anderson learned that in the worst way possible, through the death of his wife and the destruction of his career. Aelin Sirith learned it through 7 years of silence after her civilization tore away her very sense of self. But they also learned something else, that second chances exist, not despite our failures, but because of them. That the capacity to try again, to risk again, to choose connection over safety, is the most human thing there is. And that truth transcends species, transcends biology, transcends every boundary we think separates us. Victor gave up memories he will never recover, abilities he will never regain, years of life he will never live. But ask him if he regrets it, and he will show you the circuits glowing silver gold under Aelin's skin, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He will tell you about the hundreds of lives they have saved together, the paper they are writing that will change neural medicine forever, the home they built from exile and choice. He will tell you that some sacrifices are not losses, but transformations. So here is my question for you. Have you ever had to choose between protecting yourself and saving another? Have you ever been punished for doing what you knew was right? And if you could go back, knowing everything it would cost, would you still make that choice? Write the word bridge in the comments if this story made you think about your own connections, the ones you have and the ones you have lost. Tell me where you are watching from, what part of the world you call home. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel, because we share stories about humanity at its best and worst, about the choices that define us and the connections that save us. Turn on notifications so you never miss when we explore what it means to be human, to be alien, to be alive and trying despite everything. Share this with someone who needs to hear that second chances are real, that sacrifice for love is never wasted, that being broken does not mean being beyond repair. Thank you for spending this hour with Victor and Aelin, with 2 exiles who found each other at the edge of everything and chose to build something beautiful from their brokenness. Now go, connect with someone. Choose love over safety. Risk something that matters, because that is what being human is all about.